Hey, welcome back to the TechEd Clubhouse Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Katie Trowbridge, a retired educator, nonprofit leader, and author of a new book, Lead Boldly, Think Deeply. And we're going to dig into something schools and workplaces desperately need right now, deeper thinking, not just getting answers, not just the compliance that we had growing up, but the real curiosity, creative thinking, and critical thinking, and above all, human connection. And Katie spent some years helping educators and leaders rethink what meaningful learning and leadership looks like in a world that rewards, it's English, rewards speed. Today, we're going to explore what it means to lead boldly, create space for curiosity, and help students become and adults become better thinkers. Katie, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what brings you here.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is so much fun. I have taught high school English for 25 years. I started first in marketing, actually, and was a marketing executive and manager and director and all that kind of fun stuff. But I really felt like there was something missing in my life. And everyone always told me, you should be a teacher. And my response was, hell no. I am never going to teach bratty little kids. And they were so right. I was so wrong. Because the first time I stepped into a classroom, that was it. I loved every second of teaching. And I continued to teach through COVID, through all of that, retired a few years ago, and now work for a nonprofit called Curiosity to Create. And our main focus really is how to help people, students, teachers, leaders start to think creatively and critically, as well as collaborate with each other and connect. I'm sure we were talking earlier, you were a teacher as well, that connection seemed to be so much less than it used to be. When I started teaching in 1999, kids were always talking and they were always with each other. And my classroom was full of laughter and fun. And then all of a sudden, around 2013, I noticed silence. And I think part of it was smartphones, right? Kids were on their cell phones. They were, that started to disappear, that connection. And so that's where I started really doing the research. And then recently finished my doctorate degree in innovative curriculum and learning. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's quite the route into education
Mm-hmm.
from not wanting it to absolutely loving it and being there for
Yep.
25 years. That's a long time to teach juniors and seniors, as you were saying in English,
Yeah.
especially when probably half of them maybe didn't want to be there.
Oh, I would say more than half of them,
You know,
especially lately I taught everything from the reluctant learner all the way up to the AP students. Um, and I would say so many of them just they don't want to be there.
now let me ask you this here, because you brought up that reluctant learner versus the AP student. Which
Hmm.
one of those was harder to teach?
The AP student. Here's it. Well, and I should say, let me clarify a little bit when you say harder. I loved teaching my reluctant learners.
Absolutely.
Loved it because they, as much as they're reluctant to learn, you have to just find that connection with them. Once you find the connection with them, they're all in. If you can say,
Yes.
like what you love, creating websites, why don't you create a website for me? I mean, like, then they're all in. The AP students, what made them harder was that they were so compliance driven.
Yes.
They just wanted the A. They didn't want to take risks or be curious. They just wanted to know what's right and what's wrong. So that's
Yes.
what's different. I mean, it depends on how you determine hard. I could stand up there in front of my AP students and just say, this is what you need to do. They would do it. It would be done. The reluctant learner takes a lot more effort,
Hmm.
but I don't, it was just a very different kind of connection that I was able to make with a reluctant learner.
Yeah, I kind of saw that as a like we said earlier, as a recovering middle school STEM teacher, that
Mm-hmm.
AP student struggled in my class because there was no one right answer.
Correct.
And I think that, and yeah, I love your thoughts on this. We're
Yeah.
so outcome driven in education right now. Like, what is that state test going to look like? What is this what do I need to have on this essay to make this an A? What do
Mm-hmm.
I need to have on this math worksheet? Whatever it is. And I think we're missing, to quote an English, I believe a Shakespearean English, we're missing the forest for the trees.
Yes, yes, right.
You
Right.
know,
And I
and
think that that's the problem right now is that we are so, like you said, data driven, and we've raised kids to be that way. So, even in schools are data driven, that's one thing. But when the kids know we're data driven and think about getting into college, I mean, parents are starting to talk to their kids about getting into college in third, fourth grade.
yeah,
I mean, it's all prep, prep, prep. And I think then we're missing the bigger picture, which is humanity, curiosity, the ability to think, to be innovative. So it's not about the right. You're right. My students, my saying always was, well, so what? So the kids would say, well, I think that,
yes,
Hamlet is doing this, and be like, so what? And they'd get so frustrated with me. Stop saying that. I'm like, but I want you to think, like, keep going. So what?
yes.
What does this mean? Why does it matter? So yeah, they would get pretty frustrated because there's no right answer, but that's what I liked.
Absolutely. That's, I was always huge on, and I think we have a very similar philosophy here. I was always huge on, how did we get to that point? I don't care what that thing that you make is, right? It might, because you may never do it again, right? To be honest with you, I've never written poetry since I left high school. Not even to my wife. Um, but there's a process and there's a thought and it's a skill. Curiosity, creativity, all that stuff is a skill. And how do we nurture that?
Yeah, and I think that that is the key right now. And what's happened is what I've been seeing in the last so many years of studying this and researching it and working on it is that it has to start at a young age because we learn very quickly, even, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, they're just born curious. They love curiosity. They're the kids that drive you crazy because they're always asking questions, right? But then you get up into fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, and all of a sudden it starts switching. And and the research shows that curiosity switches from the little kid to, oh, what is this? Oh, it's a lightning bug, right? To in
Mm-hmm.
junior high and older, it's how does this work? How does a lightning bug, how does it actually light up? Their curiosity has changed. When it gets into high school, the curiosity is more was, how does my world impact a lightning bug? Has a lightning bug impact my world? Like there's still curiosity. It just shifts. The problem is in education is we start saying, stop asking questions. Stop asking so many questions. Just read this article. This is what a lightning bug does. Read the article. Now regurgitate to me. Here's a 10, multiple
Mm-hmm.
choice of what is a lightning bug. And what happens is then the kids aren't curious anymore. It's more of standing up in front of the class and say, what do you wonder about a lightning bug? What are some of your questions about a lightning bug? And letting the kids just, oh, well, how does this work? And where do they get the light from? And is it, I mean, like any silly type of a question, just ask. And then saying, okay, so what are we most curious about, class? What do we really want to learn about a lightning bug? Now let's go research it. And that's your critical thinking. Let's go research it. Let's go find out what's true about a lightning bug. That's in junior high, that works. In high school, it's what is the purpose of a lightning bug? What How does it help our environment? How does it I remember, and I remember as a kid, terrible, but I would like catch a lightning bug and you put
Yeah.
it in a jar or you smush it on the sidewalk or like terrible things you did as a kid. But like
Yes.
it's how do I relate? How do I, high schoolers are very much egocentric. How does this impact me? How does it impact the world? So the problem is that we've got to recognize that in education and nurture that so it doesn't end. The research I just did, a national study about curiosity, and creative thinking and critical thinking for people in the workforce. What they are telling me is that they leave school, they go into the workforce, and they're afraid to be curious, which is
Yeah.
so interesting to me. So the biggest thing that keeps them from being curious is fear of being wrong, because we
Mm-hmm.
haven't taught them that failure is okay. Fear of judgment, because we haven't taught them that people are different than us and might think differently than us, and that's okay. So they are so afraid that they would rather stay silent than to rock the boat, to be a little bit of a naysayer, because they're what, I might throw into something and then someone's going to object. And so fear then shuts down curiosity. And I think it stems from when they're in school and how they progress. If we don't keep nurturing that and say, oh, it's a great question, tell me more. We have adults now that just don't want to be curious.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree with all of that in a more emphatic way. It's exactly what I've been talking about, Katie, in the past couple episodes of my podcast, where, you know, doing an activity, like you said, asking that question, right? Do that activity, spark that curiosity, and then go with that where the kid wants to go. And that might be different in your first period class than it is in your third period class. And you know what? That's okay, because
Yep.
you can hit that standard in bazillion different
Oh,
ways.
yes.
And I think that's what makes us teachers be teachers,
Mhm.
not reading that canned curriculum and saying, I got to cover this today and you're going to get it. Because I don't care whether they're 5 or they're the 18-year-old senior, they're kids,
Mhm.
right? And, I'm 55 and and my wife will admit, I'm a 12-year-old at heart. I still find, you got to have fun.
Yes. Yes. And I was just going to say that. I'm like, yes, the 18-year-old's a kid, but I'm 56 and I'm still a kid. Right. I mean,
Exactly.
we've got to keep embracing that as we continue. And that's why there's even a chapter in my book for leaders about recess. I call it recess
Yes.
because why we stop recess, we should always have recess. I mean, even in businesses. And I mean, honestly, who needs recess more but the junior in high school who is so antsy and needs to just go run around and hang out and right? We've that sense of play is so important. We've got to hang on to that
Love it.
childlike play. We can't let that go. But unfortunately, it's that, well, you have to adult now. You have to grow up, knock it off.
Yeah, and I think we kind of with the state exams, and like you said, we
Mm-hmm.
talked about the data driven piece. Are
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of, for lack of a better term, beating that curiosity and beating that play and that fun and pushing everything down in grade levels,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And so, we talked about kind of this stuff, but what do you think kills the curiosity the fastest in kids, but also in adults that you work with?
Yeah. I think one of the thing is the perception that questions are annoying.
Yeah.
Stop asking questions. I think that that's the thing. I used to have in my classroom what I would call like the parking lot or the not
Hmm.
yet. And so those kids who ask a ton of questions, which we all have, right? The
Absolutely.
Arnold Horseshacks, dating
Sweat
myself. Welcome
hogs.
back, Cotter. The oh, me. Like I would say, here's a post-it note. Go put it on the parking lot, and we'll get to it. So that questions are still valued. I might not have time right now to answer your 10 questions, but I will get back to you so that they're feeling valued. One of the biggest things I heard too from my dissertation and from the national study is the word value. That kept coming up over and over again. People don't feel valued. And
True.
I think that's the same thing for kids. Like, you don't value my thinking because and I think about that even as English teachers. There's a great reel I saw once about what English teachers, how they stand up in front of the classroom, which I can talk about since I was one for so long, and they just say, they ask a question and the kid answers it and they're like, not quite. Anybody else? Not quite. So it's that because the students know in my English teacher brain, I have an answer I'm looking for, and they're just trying to guess what's in my brain. And
Yes.
that's where it changes. It can't be, I have an answer. I think, why is in The Great Gatsby Daisy wearing yellow, right? I know why I think it is. I can't expect the kids to guess what I'm thinking. And that's
Hmm.
what we turned education into. And leaders have turned that into as well with their
Right.
employees. I mean, think about it in administration, right? A lot of times the principal is doing the same thing to the staff.
Right.
What is our school improvement? What's our goal be for next year? He already knows, she already knows what she wants that goal to be, but she wants buy-in or he wants buy-in when as a staff member or as a student or whatever, you're sitting there going, just tell us. You already know. Just tell us. Right. So that all of that kills curiosity because then we don't get involved. We don't have that value that we need.
And that's a great point because I got an example of that, Katie. At my school, when I was still teaching there, they did a building project and they had these tall bistro tables outside the office. Well, they were redoing the office. So they pulled it and put it outside my classroom, which I still don't understand why my classroom was right next to the office. It scratches my head there a little bit. Um, but anyways, I went out and sat there at 7 o'clock in the morning when the kids and the teachers came in. All of a sudden we had a community,
Mm-hmm.
right? We were curious about why are you sitting here? Why, and then, but if to your point, if my administrator had come and said, we're going to put tables outside of all the classrooms, we want you sitting out there, wouldn't have happened,
Right.
because there was no, all of a sudden teachers are having conversations and working on this creativity skill that we're talking about, these critical thinkings and this connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why do those, you talk about those three things kind of fitting together. Why
Yes.
are those things inseparable?
Yeah, and so I would add curiosity. It's curiosity, creative, critical thinking, connection. Those four things have to come together for deeper thinking because when you're curious first, we talked about, then you become creative. So I always say it's kind of like standing in the ocean, right? You stand on the sand and you're curious and you think what's out there, right? But then you take a step in and you start being creative. Well, I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
this is out there. Maybe there's a Loch Ness monster. Maybe like then you become curious and then you're in the shallow of the ocean. Then you get into the deeper part of the ocean, which is critical thinking. You go deep into, okay, well, I want to really find out what's in the ocean. I really want to find out what's out there. And you start doing your research. But it's the connection point, the lighthouse in there that says, okay, I'm going to be your guide as your teacher, but also your community. And it's who's in your boat with you to get to that lighthouse, right? So it's, we all have different strengths. We all have different things that we can bring. And if we have to start depending on each other to help us find the lighthouse, to help us find that innovation, that big idea, whatever it is, right? And so that's why they have to go together. So we can't do this alone. And so many of us are isolating. The Atlantic just had an article not too long ago about how we're in an isolation crisis. We all are so isolated from each other. And that is not helping us be innovative and creative because you might have a great idea, Dan. I might have a great idea. And then together we come up with even better idea.
Absolutely.
And that connection is so vital for us to be able to thrive and learn and see other perspectives. We can be curious about something and start thinking about something, but our algorithms are going to show us what we think. Until we start talking to other people and hearing different perspectives, we're not going to broaden our connection to see what innovation can really happen in our world. And that's why I think and the more curious we are and the more of a deeper thinker, the more we're going to be interested in people. I mean, sitting here, you and I could sit and talk, all about our teaching and our families
Mm-hmm.
and what we love and what's your favorite movie and what kind of music do you listen to. That's where the connection happens. Then we have that trust, that safety. Think about your classroom. Probably the ones that were the best learners, the most engaged learners, were probably the ones that you had a really strong connection with as a group. You take that time in the beginning of the classroom and you build that psychological safety. You build the ability that, hey, we're a team. Those classes, at least in my experience, those classes did so much better than the ones that didn't like each other, wouldn't talk to each other, wouldn't connect. Group work was such a hard thing to do. That connection makes a huge difference.
And that gets me thinking there a little bit too, Katie, about things like, that classroom that's connected does better,
Mm-hmm.
but that better is a relative term. Better for them let's say a consultant class
Mm-hmm.
might not be academically as high as your AP kids,
Right.
right? But they, as a class, got better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those are the intangible things that as teachers, we're not going to walk in and teach,
Right.
and I had the luxury. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and I would say, no, I would just say, Dan, what's more important?
Exactly.
What's more important and what is more influential for those kids in the long run? Is it that they could, recite Hamlet's soliloquy to be or not to be, or is it that they learned how to be humans? right? They learned how to think. They learned how to connect. Like that's what I think sometimes when we talk about the reluctant learner versus the AP student,
Hmm.
like that connection. Sometimes the AP students had a harder time connecting with each other than the reluctant learner did.
Absolutely.
You know, and so and yet, you know what? We need these human traits in our students that aren't data driven. I can't, it's very hard to have a data driven
Yes.
SEL kind of, I mean, that's, it's tough, but you can do it. It's just not as easy.
In what it looks like in your classroom, or in the boardroom, or in the scrum meeting at the corporation, is going to look different than if it's mine, if it's my administrators. It's going to look different. It's got to be you, inherently you too, right?
Right. Right. And I think that that's key. And I think that that's okay. I
Yeah.
was talking to one principal not that long ago, and he had the expectations that in his fifth grade math wing, that every teacher would be on the exact same level. So when he walked around the math wing of the fifth grade, that every teacher would be on the same PowerPoint slide at the same time, doing the
Oh,
same thing. And I thought, oh, we need to talk, because it was standardized curriculum. It was that, and I thought,
yeah.
oh my gosh, I would, as a teacher, slowly die in that situation. My soul, I couldn't do it, because you're not being individual and you're not meeting your students where they need to be met.
Yes. Because, to be honest, and I know you're going to agree, kids don't come to school to watch us work. At the end of the day, they're not coming to school to watch us work. And what do you remember? I mean, if you ask your students, Katie, what they remember about your class, it's not going to be that amazing PowerPoint lecture you did. It's going to be the day you acted out Hamlet
Yeah,
and you came dressed as King Lear or
yeah,
whomever.
yep,
That's what they're going to remember.
right.
And so, looking at some of this stuff as we move forward, do you think that as teachers and maybe even as administrators or business leaders, that we're too quick to save, or even as parents, to save the student or our workers that productive struggle?
Right. That, I love that word so much, productive struggle.
Yes.
Um, I think it's so important. And I talk about productive struggle all the time. Because yes, I think, and I'm sure you probably have heard the lawnmower parent. So we
Oh,
had the
yeah,
helicopter parent, but now we have
absolutely.
lawnmower parents where let me just take out every obstacle for you. And I'm gonna, oh, if there's a little rock you need to step over, let me throw it away for you. Right. And so they're lawnmowing, and instead of allowing the student to struggle, allowing your employees to struggle, because that's where the true creative and critical thinking is going to come in. Like, you sit and you think about IKEA, the IKEA effect. Have you ever put together a piece of furniture from IKEA and it's like, oh my gosh, you do it, but then you did it backwards, and now wait, I don't understand, and I'm missing a part. But when it's all put together, you sit back and you go, look what I did. Look at my
Right.
accomplishment. That's what we need. We need that, putting together a jigsaw puzzle. It takes time. You got to sort everything out. We can't, and I think we have lost the joy of struggle.
Yes. I like that. The joy of struggle. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. Now,
Yeah.
see, on top of all that, I'm a coach. I was a coach. I coach football and swimming and a bunch of that stuff. And one of the big things that I tell teachers now is, you want to see some quality education and some communication and some collaboration and curiosity. Walk down the hall to your special area, first of all. Go see your
Mm-hmm.
band teacher, go see your musical production. But walk out to that football practice. Walk
Mm-hmm.
out to that, go see basketball practice for 20 minutes. What's going on there that's not going on in your classroom? And how is that person getting a dozen kids that won't talk to each other in class to work together as a unit on the basketball court, on the football field, in the swimming pool, whatever it is,
Yep.
or to the musical, right?
Yep.
There's some quality stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, I have my create method, which has been for teachers by teachers. And it helps a teacher take what they're doing, their lesson, even if it's a structured, because
Yes.
I hear that from teachers all the time. I have this structured curriculum I have to do. You still can add curiosity, creative and critical thinking and connection into it. And so I have the whole create method, but the T in the create method is team. And I encourage teachers to stop saying groups. We're going to put you in groups, but I'm going to put you into teams for the exact reason you were just talking about. Because when you look at, now I'm a Cubs fan, I'm born and raised a Cubs fan. And when you look at a team, like you're saying, like you can't have a team full of first basemen. You can't have a team full of pitchers. Everybody has a skill. Everybody has something that they bring to the team. And as a unit, they're trying to win. It's not just the pitcher who's like, yes, I won. It's the
Right.
team wins. You have to work together. And so it's just that simple shift of we're not just going to be in groups, we're going to be in teams. I think the other thing too, to what you're saying is your football team, your swim team, they work together for a semester. And sometimes what we do as a teacher is we say, okay, today I'm going to put you into groups and sound off 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And today you're going to work with these other 3 people. Tomorrow you're going to work with these other 3 people.
Mm-hmm.
So the relationship isn't building. I would say keep them in those teams for at least a month or a unit or a semester, a quarter, so that they really get to learn about each other and learn about their strengths and collaborate and connect. And so many times too, if the kids are like, oh, we're going to talk about the dance this weekend, we go in and go, stop talking. Focus on your work.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, let them go for a couple
Absolutely.
minutes. Let them talk about the football game this weekend. Let them talk about the dance. Let them talk about what they did, because that's the connection part. And once they're connected, the productive struggle and the risks will just fall into line.
I did that. I'm realizing after 30 years that that's something that I did in my classroom just because that's who I was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But, as a teacher, I would walk around and say, I'd say, hey, Katie, how's your mom? Or because,
Right.
I got to the point where I was there long enough that I had students of students
Mm-hmm.
and almost students of students of students.
Oh
Which
my,
is,
yeah.
yeah, that's a small community. But, it's like, you got to ask them, how was the football game? Or how's you're going to a dance competition this week. Let me know how you did. Bring me in a schedule. I want to come to your hockey game.
Yes.
Or I'd go pop my head into the band room while they're practicing and just make a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Or see them at the grocery store.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Yep.
that's
Yep.
that human connection. And then
Yes.
because you could get a little bit more out of that kid now because there's some trust.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to explicitly teach these things, right?
No.
You're not you're going to put these people in groups, but you're not going to necessarily do, okay, now you're in a group. Let's do 2 truths and a lie.
Yep.
Yep. I'm not going to do that. I hated that as a teacher.
I hate it. I hate it as a person. I
hate those
I don't
things.
like those things as a person. So I never usually did them because I did like at the beginning of school, I did a lot of team building. And so we do a lot of fun, like, can you put this puzzle together in the next period, which would be impossible. So how, you didn't finish the puzzle or, well, I did the ends. So I did a lot of fun activities like that at the beginning of the unit or the beginning of the school year. I never liked the 2 truths and a lie or.
Yeah. Those make me cringe. And I'm like, I'll go
Yeah.
hide in the back.
Yes.
My medium was Lego bricks.
Yeah. Oh, I love
I
Legos.
loved using Lego
Oh.
bricks. I always started my school year every year with the duck activity. You familiar with the duck activity?
No.
Oh, you got to look at the Lego duck activity. So you get
Okay.
6 bricks and you make a duck. There's a certain number of bricks that you get.
Okay.
But everybody makes a duck. So there's every time I've done it, Katie, I rarely see the same duck twice.
Oh, cool.
Which is a great metaphor for like, okay, we got 20 kids in our classroom. We built 20 different ducks, right? And they're all right.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of sets the tone. So I always had
that.
Lego bricks out in my classroom, and that's how we started the day. And it might be something like build a pumpkin, like October, we're building a pumpkin, or Valentine's Day, we're building a heart. Might be build an animal that can't live, build a flower, right?
I might steal this from you. This is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. And, as a fact, I have my Lego bricks sitting on my desk here. Always have Lego bricks around. And, but it gets that hands, and it could be craft sticks and pipe cleaners. It could be a sketch note. It could be, your paper tower, or your spaghetti
Mm-hmm.
thing, or your jigsaw puzzle, whatever it is, but it gets the hands busy and it
Yeah.
builds that and it reduces anxiety, right? It's
Right. Oh,
producing,
yes. Yes. In
so
fact,
it's
in
huge.
my classroom, I had little Tupperware boxes. And in those boxes, I would have, pens and paper, post-it notes, but I always had Play-Doh and I always had
Hmm.
some kind of fidget sticks. And
Absolutely.
what was so interesting throughout the years that I noticed is that because we were in high school and they would switch periods, they would start talking to each other on the
Hmm.
post-it notes. So, because we were at tables. And so all of a sudden I'd look in their boxes if I needed to put more Play-Doh in there, and
Sure.
I'd see, hey, period one, what did you guys do today? This is what we did. Hey, period. I mean, it was really cool because all of a sudden they didn't even really know who they were talking to, but they were just talking to each other because this little box, and they would draw on the post-it notes, and then somebody would say, oh, I love this, or who drew this is great, or and the Play-Doh, they were always playing. I really think that we have to get away from sit still,
Yes,
stop
absolutely.
fidgeting, because that reduces our ability to be curious and to think and be creative.
And kind of going back to my duck story, I did this once and I had a kid that never put it together, right? And I'm like, well, you didn't make a duck. He goes, yeah, I took it apart. I'm going to grill it. And I'm like, now, and what those things show too, Katie, and this is what I love too, and you can probably equate to this. You understand how that kid thinks now.
Yes.
So you know that you can do a little bit different with him or her, or you need to do a little bit different. I want to go back a little bit because it just came to my head again. You talked about that teacher with the canned curriculum,
Yeah.
right? Let's talk about that teacher that has, you were an English teacher for 20 years, 25 years. You probably had some really awesome go-to lessons,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you did that were effective.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not saying with this curiosity piece and the creativity piece, throw that away and start something new. But what can I do to tweak that to make that
Right.
effective for the kid that's in period one versus the kid that might be in period four?
Right. Right. And that's what I think is fun about with the create method that I have too, is that it walks you through what is it that you need for this classroom. Like maybe, first period, man, they are the most creative kids. They just, and a lot of times it falls that way because they have the same schedule. Like they all have to take band at the same time, or they all have,
Yes.
so you tend to get groups of kids that they've been together for a long time because they just tend to always be in that class together. And so first period, oh man, these are my creative kids. Second period, man, these are my kids that just will not engage. I still have to teach them
Mm-hmm.
Hamlet,
Right.
right? But first period, man, they're gonna run with Hamlet. They're gonna act it out. They're gonna do a bunch of stuff because those are those kids that they all just connect. Second period, I have to teach Hamlet. Yeah.
Right.
They're not going to engage with me as much. So what do I need to do for them? Right? So first period, teamwork, that will work out really great. We're going to do whatever. Second period, same as like you said earlier, same standard, same lesson, but I know that I'm going to have to do more individual work first to get
Mm-hmm.
them, so instead of first period, jump right into your teams. Second period might be, okay, everybody, for 5 minutes, I want you to write about what Hamlet was thinking in this scene. Now I want you to sit and talk to someone else. What do they think is happening? Now I can go into the group setting. Same lesson, it's just different ways of getting there because
And
of different students.
and that's what makes teaching fun,
Yes. Yes.
right? That's what that gets us back to the why we walked into the classroom and wanted to
Mm-hmm.
be a teacher in the first place. Not reading that script, which there's a time and a place for.
Yep.
100%. And I'm not saying I'll never say, we need to get rid of worksheets. We need to get rid of
Nope.
tests.
Yep.
There's a time and a place for that, right?
Right.
We still need that, just that rote knowledge.
Right.
But
Right. I
how do we
think what's
use it?
missing, many times, I'm going to go back to your tagline of build, think, reflect, is the reflect part. So that when
Yes.
we give kids the time to, and that's part of the last E in create method, when we give kids the time and we give ourselves time to reflect. I mean, I think we can do all these, because I would say, going back to the first and second period example, you know, some teachers might say, oh, that sounds really stressful, Katie, that I can't do the exact same thing. But you're just tailoring it a little bit different. It's like you said, it should be fun, not stressful. But then taking time to reflect on the fact that you can't do the same thing in first period as you did in second period. How might I change that? How might I, as a teacher, make sure that period one and period two are learning the same thing, but in different ways? And then saying to the students, okay, what did you learn today? What
Yeah.
did you think? You know, like, so that it's not just this test or this worksheet, but it's actually being able to think and reflect on what could I do better next time? Or what really questions do I still have? What am I still curious about? But if we don't do that and we're like, okay, everybody gone, bye, see ya, bell rang, we're missing out.
Yeah. And I worked with a colleague that would copy lesson plans from one year to the next. He'd pull out last year's plan book and this year's plan, just,
Mhm.
and he did some awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But unless I had a conversation with somebody last week and they talked about, are we an information mover?
Right.
Right. Am I taking this note off of the smart board and putting it on my worksheet?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of that?
Right.
Right. And
That's changed.
we're talking about taking that knowledge, because I'm a big proponent of taking that knowledge that the teacher might be providing, or a text or a document or whatever it is, and how do I apply it? And how do I apply it in a different way? And I think that's what your creativity and your create
Yes.
method and your curiosity piece is all about.
Right. Because as they grow up, as these kids leave us, right? And really when I would always say the only real goal I have when my students leave my classroom is that they are better people and they
Yeah.
know how to think for themselves. Are they going to care about Hamlet, The Great Gatsby? No, it's just a means, right? A method and a means to get them to start thinking about different things and seeing different perspectives. And so I would always say what's most important is that when they walk out of my classroom, they can be better equipped to be human beings and adults. And then that's going to carry on and carry into what they're doing in the workforce, right? So if
Absolutely.
if we are saying there's only a right answer or a wrong answer, when they get to the workforce, then they're going to do that too. And that's why I talk to leaders about how really in today's society, leaders today have to change. They can't be compliance driven. They have to be curiosity driven. And I always say to them, we have to stop managing tasks and mentoring thought, because that's where we're going. Because like you said, we can't be that information where we train
Yeah.
from one to another. That has to stop. We have to be giving knowledge like you talked about, but then now what are you going to do with that knowledge? What might we do different? My favorite thing in my classroom was when my student would surprise me and I would say, oh, I never thought about that.
Oh, all the time. All the time. You could have the perfect, I could be, doing a bridge project, and all of a sudden a kid's doing something and it's like, that's not what I was looking for, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? And I love the question. This is what I would do in my classroom, Katie. Why are you doing it that way?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that tells me more than any test could tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose this material?
Yeah.
Why did, and maybe in an ELA class, it's why do you, it might be the question, why do you think Hamlet did such and such? Why do
Mm-hmm.
you think the main character in A Long, Long Walk to Water
Yeah.
did this?
Yeah.
And how does that relate to you?
Yes, that's where I was going to go with. Yeah, what would
Because
you do in Hamlet's position? What would you do in, like that? What do you think Hamlet could have done so that he had a better conclusion? I mean,
because
like
yeah,
that's what, and I found too that if you just say why, just
yeah,
why, people will get defensive. But if you say, tell me why you built it that way, now I'm going to be more open. If you just say, why, or just, get a
yes.
lot of the attitude of, what were you thinking? I mean, that kids will shut down, people will shut down. But if you really are genuinely connected with that kid and you genuinely care, like, tell me more about why you use those materials. That's really interesting.
And the first few times you do that, it's going to be terrible. You're going to get the
Yes.
blank look and you're going to get
Yes.
that, but you just got to, and again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, that connection piece that you make
Mhm.
in the classroom by saying, hi, Johnny, as he walks past in the morning,
Mhm.
or your new shoes look awesome, or
Yes.
you look tired today. And
Mhm.
you're doing something right when kids come to your class when it's not their period.
Yeah. Oh,
You
I
know,
always had a coffee machine. I had a Keurig and so and they would just like all of a sudden I'd be teaching and then a student would walk in and be like, "Oh, I just want to get the coffee." I'm like, good, great, go ahead, get some coffee.
absolutely.
Like I I'm all for it. Like as long as they felt comfortable enough to walk in my classroom and they knew I was teaching, but they knew
And they didn't abuse it.
Trowbridge isn't going to care. She's, and they'd get their coffee and they'd leave and say thanks. And like, that's perfect. Or they come in before class, after
Hmm.
school, during their lunch, just because they want to sit and chat with you.
Absolutely. And a lot of what this stuff is, this why question that we talked about,
Mhm.
in the what would you do?
Mhm.
That makes your assignments AI and cheating resistant.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't have to worry about AI. You don't have to
Right.
worry about somebody copying and pasting because Katie's opinion of it and my opinion of it
Mhm.
should be different enough that we should be able to tell the part.
Mhm.
And I always loved the fact when my projects, and I would tell teachers this, that like you probably took piles of essays home to grade,
Piles.
and I would argue that by the time in my class, by the time it came to grade the project, I was done because I had a conversation with Katie about why, and I had a conversation with Katie about what they built and what they and why they chose this, and so that I knew that you got it.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is remembering that it's a process. When you
Yes.
said, that you're build and think and reflect, it's the build part, it's the process part. The thinking really is a process, and that is again against AI. If you are with your student throughout the process of them writing that essay, of them doing that project, of them, so what they're thinking from day one. That's it. We can't forget that being creative and curious and critical thinkers and the connection part, it's all a process. When I did my dissertation and my research for my dissertation, I heard so many times that teachers really thought that like the creativity part was the product, the end product. Oh, you
Yeah.
built that bridge. That's the creativity. And I argued that's not what we need, is the process to build that bridge. That's the creative thinking. That's what we need to focus in on. The end product is great. Love it. But
Yeah.
really, like you get to know your student through that process of how they built it. How did they, solve that equation? How did they write that short story? So I'm really, we can't forget about the process. It's not just the product.
Absolutely. And that was huge. And again, in a STEM class, it's kind of just inherent in what I
Mm-hmm.
did. But like your essays, your pile of essays that might take you a week to grade.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the kid gets that back, that feedback on there doesn't mean anything to them.
No,
They
I
just
found
look,
it in
oh,
the
I
recycling
got an
bin.
85, boom.
Yeah,
And it goes
that's all
in
they
the, it
saw.
goes in the recycle bin.
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know and I always hated that. For
Yep.
a while I hated the fact that we built something and the kids wanted to smash it, and I'm like, you know what, one, they're kids,
Right.
right?
Right.
I would too if I were 12,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, come on, what, nobody, who doesn't like to see something explode?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But again, they're kids, and that feedback doesn't matter unless it's now. And if, like you said, if you're working on an essay and you're evaluating it as you go, when they turn
Yep.
it in, it's awesome,
And it
or
makes
it's
it
the
easy
best
to
that they can
grade.
do.
Right. So if I'm giving them feedback on the thesis, on their topic sentences, on their transitions throughout the process,
Yes.
when I get that final paper, I already know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Right. So I can read it, circle on the rubric, and done.
Right.
And I would always say to my students, if you don't get an A on a paper, that's not my fault. That's because you didn't put in the effort to get the feedback beforehand.
Right.
Our students should be successful because we're giving them this feedback if they take it and they listen to it. And that is that reflection part again. That's why it's so important. And the psychological safety of being able to go to Mr. Thomas and say, hey, I don't know if this is right. I took a risk here. And to know that you're not going to judge me if I'm completely wrong.
Oh yeah, we celebrated epic failures as much as
Oh,
epic successes. Oh
oh,
my
I love that.
gosh.
Yeah, I had a failure wall. Yeah,
Oh my
absolutely.
God, those were the best.
Yeah, because usually
You
you
know,
just put, on your refrigerator the A papers. I say put on your refrigerator the Fs. Great job. You
absolutely.
failed.
Yeah, you epic. Not only did you fail, you epically failed.
Yeah. What do we
But
learn from it?
either at the end of the day, like, and I tell people, you said you were a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
A good batting average for somebody is 300, right? That
Yep.
means 1 out of every 3 times they're successful in the job they're getting paid millions of dollars to do,
Millions. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So 1 out of 3 times. So 2 out of 3 times they fail at their job,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then we talk about this going through the process. That's what happens too when these kids leave our school and go get a job,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're getting feedback along the way. They're not just working off in a cubicle by themselves and then they turn in the final report to their boss and the boss says, no, go fix it.
Mm-hmm.
No, the
Mm-hmm.
boss is checking and evaluating and you're asking questions. And, again, it goes back to that sports analogy,
Yep. You're working
right?
as a team.
You're doing what you can do. One of my favorite quotes, Katie, was Bill Walsh. Used to coach the San Francisco 49ers back when they were pretty good in the early 1980s. Um, Take care of the little things, the big things take care of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you got that AP kid that's looking at that, oh, I got to be number one, I got to be valedictorian. I'll argue that valedictorian is one of the kids that plays the game of school the best. Now
Yes.
they're a heck of a lot smarter than I'll ever be,
Yep.
right? But
Yep.
they're good at playing the game of school.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and so take care of those little everyday things, the
Mm-hmm.
pats on the back, the little
Mm-hmm.
little things like that. Let's wrapping up here. So if what's one thing you would want one of my listeners, or maybe a couple things, to take away from today?
Ask questions. Ask questions. Just, be curious about your students. Ask your questions what they're interested in. That connection piece is, I think, so vital. And we talk about rapport, and teachers talk about it all the time. But it is just being curious about where your students are. And like you said, sitting outside the classroom and getting to know them, going to a football game, going to a band concert, whatever. I think being curious is also will bring you joy back into, so many teachers are burnt out, they're leaving the profession. And I think that part of why we went into teaching is because of how much we love our students. So we can't lose that by being curious. That's number one. Number two, I would say, taking care of yourself and being
Mm-hmm.
creative in your own world. So personally, how are you allowing yourself to be curious and creative and to fail? I think one of the best things we can do as teachers is stand up in front of our classroom and go, you guys aren't going to believe what I did last night. I,
Every
I
day.
messed up the salt and the sugar, and my cookies were so bad. I mean, because then the kids are like, oh, wait, Mrs. Trowbridge, that's hilarious. Like, you're vulnerable, you failed, and you're laughing about it, which gives me permission to fail and laugh about it. And that, I think, the more we become human to our students, that helps us in our classroom as well. So I would say, asking questions, being curious, being vulnerable, taking some risks, try new things. Don't be afraid to try new things. And I know that I hear this all the time, like, oh, Katie, you had a good administration, which I did. And
Oh, I was lucky too.
yeah, they nurtured me. They allowed me to epically fail. But you can still try in little ways, right? And talk to your administration. Here's what I want to try. What do you think? It's that same idea of getting them involved. And I'd love for you to pop in my classroom and to try something new, because then again, you're building that rapport with your administration as well.
That's awesome. And one more question. We
Yeah.
didn't talk about your book.
Oh,
Tell us about your book. I don't want to leave without talking about your book that just
no.
came out.
Yeah. Well, so I want to talk about two books actually, because yes, for the Lead Boldly, Think Deeply is very much what I've written for leaders
Mm-hmm.
to, how leaders need to be more like the great teachers, how I really believe. And so the whole book is formatted in period 1, period 2, period 3, recess, like I mentioned, graduation. So I
Nice.
really want modern day leaders to really understand that what they're missing is the educator part. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times education looks to business. I think it's time that business started looking at education. So that is the one that just came out. The other one for your audience really is deeper thinking in the classroom. That one walks through the create method, and it is more of a workbook than anything. And it really is take a lesson that you're working on and now do the C, now do the R, and how can you, and there's examples from kindergarten through 12th grade. So for your audience, that might work
Yes.
as well. So both of those are two books I'm really proud of. We spent, like I said, the create method was for teachers by teachers. It wasn't just me; it's a bunch of other teachers who came together. And I use the CREATE method in the leadership role as well. But for teachers, really deeper thinking in the classroom is a really great resource.
And if somebody wants to connect with you outside of this, where can they find you?
So curiosity2create.org, the number two, is our nonprofit. And then there's katietrowbridge.com, LinkedIn. So I'm on everything. I would love to help anybody.
All right. All those things I'll put in the show notes, links to
Great.
your books, links to your LinkedIn, to your website. Katie, I had a great time today. You and I have a great thought process together.
Yes.
I think we have a very similar thought process,
Yes.
and I hope we can change education for the better.
We've got one teacher at a time.
Absolutely.
That's all that matters.
Yep. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.